Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Lone Star and Volunteer State Mystery Hour. I'm Sue, and with me today, I have, of course, my siblings, Amy from Texas and Jeff out of the volunteer state of Tennessee. And we are delving into orbs and UFOs. As you've seen in the news, the government's just released a bunch more of UFO files on June 12th. There's well over 40 of them, and we've started digging into the UFO, UAP stories, and today we're going to widen the lens a little bit. We're going to look at mysteries in Florida, along with our home states of Texas and Tennessee. And the big reason for this is Amy. She's had her own experience while she was living in Florida. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar with this orb phenomenon, across the country, and across the world, really, witnesses generally describe these orbs as silent, like basketball size to vehicle size spheres. And they are moving through the night sky with complete autonomy. They're just zipping all over the place. And most will glow with an amber, orange, or brilliant white light. Some have seen them shift colors or dim and then suddenly flare into blinding light. What really is amazing is their erratic movements. These orbs are really noted for hovering perfectly stationary. So they're just sitting there against heavy winds and then just zipping off into nowhere at speeds that anything that we currently have, it would crush them. So before we dive into Florida, Tennessee, and Texas, and all the orbs and things that people have seen in the stories, I want to turn it over to Amy, where she can talk about what she saw when she was living in Florida.
Well, it has been almost 23 years ago, but I still remember it very clearly in my head. We lived in a community called Mossy Head, Florida, which was not a city. It was just an unincorporated area. And we lived out in the country. We lived 30 miles from three different cities. It was about a 30-mile drive each way. I remember it was a Sunday morning, and the reason is if you think about 23 years ago, what did you do on a Sunday morning? You went and got the newspaper. We did have a gas station that was about 7 or 8 miles from us. So we decided that it was early Sunday morning. We were going to go get the Sunday paper and get another couple of things at the gas station, and we had left our driveway, and you gotta remember this was all out in the country. The houses back then were very sparse and few in between. We had a river. It wasn't even a river. It's called a creek because it was a creek, Shoal Creek. There was a bridge that you would have to go over, and we called it the one-lane bridge. Two cars could do it, but not a truck and a car. They couldn't do it. We got right to the edge of the bridge, and I saw something like floating right above the water. This is not a major river, it's a creek, and it was a red ball. It looked like it was on fire. It was about the size of a soccer ball. It lifted up and it came onto the bridge right in front of us and just sat there for it seemed like a long time because we stopped the car, of course, and it was just a few feet in front of us, and we just sat there for a minute, and then it kind of lifted up a little bit, and there was guardrails, on the side of the bridge, and it just went over that and went back down to the water, and it was just following the creek, and it was hovering probably about, I'd say, 2 feet above the water, and it just kept on going. So that was. And you have to remember this was back before we had remote. Everything was remote. We didn't, So I know that they say, oh, it's, when you read things about orbs, it'll say it's gases, it's this or it's that, or you imagined it. Okay, well, there was two of us in the car. So no, we didn't imagine it. We clearly saw it. I don't believe it. There was anything that could have been doing that. We were out in the country. There was one house that was close by, but that was it. And like I said, it was early in the morning. It was probably 7 o'clock in the morning. And I remember even when we got off the bridge and they were that house was on the other side of the bridge. I mean, the house was dark. There wasn't even a light on over there. So, and that was the only house around. So how could somebody remotely be controlling that thing from so far away? That was just a very odd experience.
Okay, I want to break in here and just ask a few questions. I want to picture this in my mind. This is the best version of the story. I've heard you tell the story a few times. You've clearly got it organized better because I actually can see it now. I love that. So you pulled up to the one-lane bridge. Have you
Right.
gotten onto the bridge yet?
Maybe just the tires touching it
Okay. Now, in the orb, it's coming down the creek. Is it coming like from the left or the right?
from the left.
From the left. So, okay. And then it just kind of
It lifted
comes
up.
up over the edge of the bridge and floats in front of you and stops.
Yep. And it wasn't for
Wait,
a
about how
long
far
period of
away
time.
was
I
it?
mean, we literally had stopped. Well, I mean,
Hmm.
staring at it.
As you do. I mean, and it was glowing orange, you said?
Yeah, it was. It. I don't know that it was orange or more red. I mean, it looked like it was on fire. That's. It looked
Okay.
like a ball that was on fire. I mean, there was no smoke. There was no, but it was just illuminating, like brightness.
And this was dark out?
No, it was just as the sun was coming up.
Okay. And this was what, in 2000, 2003, something like that?
Yeah, around 2003.
And then it hovers for a minute about how far off the bridge? Like how high up over the bridge?
Maybe 12 inches.
So just
It did.
barely above the
It came
bridge.
up over the guardrail because there was a guardrail. It came up over the guardrail and then just kind of stopped right in front of us, just a few inches off the ground. And then it just sat there and we sat there. And then it kind of floated over and then went boom and lifted up and went back down. And I looked down and it was back following the creek.
Now, was
So
it, do you know which way the creek flows? Does it flow from the left to the right or does it flow the other direction?
well, that creek, okay, so yes, it goes from left to right. Yes, left to right.
Okay. Hmm. Well, that's really interesting stuff. Like I can think of a few crazy ideas of things that could cause it, but they seem really unlikely, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it was just. I mean, how do you explain that? Like I said, they didn't
Mm,
have anything. If you look up any kind of remote control toys or anything like that, there is nothing out there like that.
yeah, they
You
didn't even
know,
have the little drones back then.
Mm-mm.
no, they didn't have drones, and that's what when people say you just saw a drone or you just saw this, and I'm like, we didn't have drones back then. We
Well,
didn't
we
have.
didn't. We didn't, but you were close to you had you had Penn
Eglin Air Force
yeah, you
Base,
had
yes.
Eglin, Pensacola. You had at least 3 Air Force bases that were near you. Who's to say they didn't have something? And I'm not saying you didn't see what you saw, because I know you saw what you saw.
I know what I saw. Now, what it was, I don't know. I
Yeah.
can't tell you what it
It's
was. I
did the Air Force have something? And I don't know. I
Yeah,
mean,
Well,
20 years
you
ago?
know they didn't have the little four engine drones that became very popular several years later. They just didn't exist. No,
Mhm.
they hadn't been invented. I
right.
mean,
So, but there is more to the story. Okay, so that was a weird experience to begin with. Okay, because we are just kind of like, okay, what the hell. So but I don't know this. I do think it was probably just because it freaked us out, that I remember, like, for the next 2 nights I had these nightmares. I thought, were we exposed to radiation, or were we exposed to something, because I had these nightmares. And I told Sue I was going to draw a picture because it is still in my head. It is still in my head after all these years that I dreamed or I saw. There were these things. We had a big deck, right? So we had a deck on the front, porch area, and then we had a deck on the side. And I saw these red things that were like this tall, like that wide. They weren't very big, but they were all lined up on my porch the whole way around. And they were just jumping up and down, like they were like their heads were on fire, kind of like that ball, right? You know, but I don't know. I don't know if because being freaked out by what we saw, that's what did that, or I don't know. But that was then I thought, dang, were
that's
we
really
exposed?
interesting, Amy. That's really interesting. I haven't heard this part before. So you had
I
like
don't know. I don't think I
a,
just told Sue the other day. I don't think I don't share that part because it
well,
was.
no, it sounds crazy. That's why no one
That's
shares it.
why.
And
That's why a lot of people don't
but
share it, because that's what you're told.
but it's really common for there to be what they call high strangeness events around any kind of UFO sighting, where just weird things that seem like you're an insane person happen.
Yeah. I mean,
Now,
that was
this seem
let me tell you. And
and
they were
looking
like,
back at it.
I want to be able to draw a picture. I'm going to see if AI can help me draw a picture. Because if you saw it, you would just laugh. Because it's not like I watch cartoons or anything, right? So I mean, the kids of course watch it, but I didn't, So, but it to me, it was these things, and they had eyes, and like their head was on all glowy and stuff, and then they were just bouncing up and down, and I was like, my God.
So
But
they were like human shaped.
no. They looked and that's why I said the cartoon thing, because they were reminding me of something. They were. I've got to see if I can get AI to help me draw a picture of it, and then you'll laugh. They, like I said, they weren't very big, but they did have eyes, and they had these glowing heads, and they were small. They weren't very big,
Well, do
but
they have arms and legs?
no arms and legs. No,
Were they on fire like
They
your
just had
basketball?
just the head part.
Mm.
Just the head. It was like their
what
hair. Like
was
if you
what
had
what
hair, it
was
was
under the
standing
head?
up high.
What was under the head? Like, is it just a cylinder? Like, what was under it?
Let's see. So okay. So if you take, that's why I said I need AI to help me draw the picture. So the head part. So if you just have a head, right? The head, it was like the hair was standing straight up, and it was red and illuminated, right? And then there were eyes, and then it was just, the body just came straight down. There was no arms, no legs. It looked like a pot holder. I guess is the only way I can explain it. A pot holder with a head and hair. And then they were just bouncing up and down, and they were making a weird noise. So yeah,
That
that
does
was fun.
sound dreamlike. I mean,
Yeah,
are
but they were
you
all
sure
lined
that
up
was a
right.
dream?
And this was the night of after that, or the next night after seeing that thing. And then it was, and I have searched and searched. I don't know where to look. So it still kind of freaked me out. Like, we just see this, never seen anything like that. We didn't get very many channels on our TV, because remember, we lived out in the country. We didn't have cable. They didn't have those kind of things. I mean, we had dial up internet. So we only got a few channels on our TV. I think we had Dish TV back then or something. I mean, it might have been before we even had Dish. And I turned on the news. The news was on, and I want to say it was Montana or Colorado, and they showed the exact same thing that I saw, and they saw them on the highway. So it kind of validated what I saw at that time. But I've tried to go back to try to see if I could find any new, and I don't really know where to look. When you, of course, Google, AI just says, it's not very helpful. So I don't remember exactly which state it was, but I think it was Colorado. But I
Well,
don't
if
know
you
how.
can kind of narrow down the dates, I can do like an AP search. It would have been an AP story
Okay.
that you saw in the local.
But it kind of it validated what I saw that somebody else saw, and they looked the same, except they were like they were driving a car, they were like right behind them.
Hmm.
So they were, this one that we saw, like I said, it obviously could lift up, because it lifted up and came onto the bridge, and then lifted up and went down. So,
This
but
is
I
see.
did try to find news, old news on it, but I couldn't find it.
Well, I've got
Jeff has
Well,
other
you work
special,
for a
resources at
yeah.
the
newspaper,
newspaper.
yeah. You work
Jeff
for a
has
newspaper.
special
Yeah, you
contacts. He
think.
can dig
Yeah.
through news sites.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, so I mean, it was like I said. The after, was what I saw. Did I, I remember laying in bed, but seeing them. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
afraid to open the door, because I knew those things were there.
And
But,
so, you're not entirely sure it was a dream then? It was just something that felt
well,
like a dream.
I know I was laying in bed, but I saw them. Like I said, to me, that I thought it was a dream. Okay, I thought it was a dream, but it felt real at the time. And like, I wouldn't, my mind is saying get up and go, open the door, but I just was not going to do that.
No, I don't know
Yeah.
that I would have gotten up and opened the door.
But I remember in the morning, I'm thinking, geez, were we exposed to some kind of radiation? Were we exposed to something? Because why would I mean, have, and like I said, just like I can still see that on the bridge, I can still see those things that was on the porch.
And
So
they were
that's
just
how,
hopping up and down, their hair on fire,
yeah,
standing straight up.
yeah.
That sounds so like if you read old stories from the medieval times when people saw fairies and stuff,
Hmm.
that's what that sounds like.
And they
That
were
is
lined
just what
up.
that
It
sounds like.
wasn't just like one or two, they were
Yeah,
a bunch of them.
Well, I can say I'm glad
that
you
is
didn't
amazing.
open the door.
Yeah.
I don't know
I
that
don't know. Maybe
that would
they
have
thought
been a
they had
good
a new
thing.
friend. Maybe they thought they had a new friend. I don't know.
Well, they met you on the road. They want to come by and visit.
Yeah, I think.
So, but
Oh,
yeah, I mean, we
yeah.
didn't really talk about it for, it. I think I would tell people and they would just look at me. So I just said I gave up. And seriously, don't think besides telling Sue, I think yesterday about the things on the porch, I don't think I had ever told anybody that part. So,
Yeah, well, that's a little weird.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's in keeping with a lot of other people's experience, though. Like when you read their experiences, it's always, if they're willing to tell you, they're like, yeah, so, then I was having,
Well, who
you
wants
know,
to, yeah,
maybe
it's very hard
dreams.
for me to say, yes, I saw these things on my porch with red glowing hair and bouncing up and down. And like I said, they had eyes. I think they had a mouth. I don't remember the mouth, but I remember the eyes and I remember the hair. And then they were just like that big, but they were lined up on my porch.
Now, did you feel frightened when
I
you
felt,
were
oh
looking at
yeah,
them?
I did that then. That's why I said, I mean, it felt like a horrific nightmare
Hmm.
that I remember.
Well, did you feel like you couldn't get out of bed or you just didn't want to get out of bed?
There was a part of me, I think, that wanted to validate that I was actually saying this, but the other part is like, heck no, I'm not opening the door. So,
So, I mean, weird visions and things are not uncommon when you're in a hypnagogic state, like right before you fall asleep. Could have easily been something like that, that was, you know,
Top of your
like you say, influenced by your experience.
right.
But it's so common and it's something that so many people report and it's reported for centuries.
hmm
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, is there some kind of connection between those two things? When you
Yeah.
have contact with this thing that we don't know what it is, then you have weird sort of psychic experiences for a period of time afterwards.
That's why I don't really think that, yes, we did have a military base, and not to say that strange things don't happen on the military base, but I just, if it was just something that the military had that was remote, I don't think I would, that, whatever that happened with the bouncy things on my porch, I don't think that would have affected me that way. So, I mean, and truthfully, the first thing that came to my mind was, dang, were we exposed? Like I said, I thought we were exposed to something, and that's, I don't know. I just don't think it was anything remote. I don't think it was military, and because, okay, even like if you see something that they say is military, it's some kind of, it's not glowing. It's not glowing. And how could it? Oh, okay, so think about it. Somebody running remote. That would mean they'd have to have a camera. We're out in the freaking woods. So how would they know to for that thing to lift up, land there, sit there in front of us, and then decide to go, okay, I'm gonna go back down and then follow the creek.
Well,
Yeah,
the behavior of the orb itself sounds like it's like hovering along with the stream.
It's following the stream.
And
but it could
and
have
if I
gone
was
under the bridge, Jeff. It could have gone
I
under the
know,
bridge. So
I
why
get
it
that.
came up in front of us and just sat there for a few seconds, it didn't have to.
Right.
I mean, there was plenty of room under the bridge for it to go.
If I was really stretching for a natural explanation of some kind, I would say maybe there was some kind of magnetic or electric field flowing downstream with the stream, whether that was a device or something else. And this was some,
Tracking it.
plasma that got mixed up with it. That seems real unlikely, though. I mean, I don't
Yeah,
know how that
yeah. I mean,
process would
I've read
happen.
the things that people say, "Oh, it's gas. It's some kind of gas thing."
Yeah,
Nah,
I mean, that could happen, sure. It just seems
I
like,
believe, yes, that could happen, but this was too well controlled.
mm,
It was too for it to come right to the bridge, lift up, sit there, and then go back down, and then just go on its merry way.
yeah, I
No,
mean,
that
that's in keeping
a
with
gas
what.
isn't going to do that.
Well, if it was, like I said, something contained in a magnetic field or electromagnetic field, and it was traveling along with the river, if the bridge is made of metal, that would affect how it behave. It could be that. It could just be some kind of simple explanation like that. But what would the thing in the river be that creates such a magnetic field? I've never heard of anything that can do that.
No,
I We
and
don't
Shoal
have
Creek is just
tech
a
that does
creek. It's
that.
not a river. It's not even a river.
No,
It's a
it's a
creek.
itty
Yeah.
bitty creek. Well, And
So, and like,
well, I'm going to go back to thinking about the Air Force bases again. And the reason I'm picking on this is where these orbs have been sighted. And you mentioned Colorado, but I think it was Montana. But either or, there's huge military bases there in both states. And we don't know what kind of technology they had. We don't know. And it could have very well been controlled by somebody sitting in a command center back in Pensacola at that point, 25 years ago. And it was following along the creek to start to map things to get it to behave. But in the same vein, I think about it, and you were 35, 40 miles away from these bases, and why would they come up to the very remote wooded area and track a creek?
Yeah, and not to say that the military couldn't have something. If it was just round, then I would say okay, that makes more sense. But it was, yes, it was round, but you have the whole thing was illuminated. You know, what I mean, the whole thing was,
Lit up like
was
a
it very
Christmas tree?
bright or was it sort of
huh?
dull? Like, how bright was it?
Very bright. I mean, not bright like the sun, but, I mean, but bright. I mean, glowing. That's what it. This way, glowing. Where it, yes, it was round, but it's like it had.
Did it pulse?
What, that I don't know, but it. I want to say like, okay, it was a ball. It looked like it had hairs, but the hairs are what all the way around it, and that was what was illuminated. Does that make sense? But the whole thing was illuminated. I don't know
Okay.
how else to explain that.
I mean, that sounds like a ball of plasma, but like I said, I don't think there's tech available today that would create that reliably. And
Yeah.
there certainly wasn't then.
No, that's So uh, I don't. I think the thing was on whatever it was on a scouting mission. Because why would it be just following a creek bed? But I don't know. It was looking for something. It was doing something. I don't know. But I do think whatever that nightmare, whatever I saw was connected to that. I do think that whether it was because it got in my head or just freaked out over it and that's what caused it or whatever that was. But I am going to get AI to draw a picture of this and y'all will laugh when you see it. And then you have to realize we're lined up on my porch and, and bouncing up and down. And it was like they were, I don't know. I kind of felt like they were laughing, but I don't know, but it was weird. It was weird.
No, I mean that's right up there with the elves and the fairies, man.
Yeah.
That's what they do. Weird stuff that you don't understand, and then you mysteriously disappear.
Yes.
Well, Florida has.
And I have looked at a lot of the ones, what just got released and stuff. And I will say that most of them orbs when they describe it, and I've seen the pictures, I've seen, where people capture, on their phones or cameras or whatever. And most of those are white. Most of those are white. And even when like the pilots, when they see things up in the sky, those are, and those things are moving fast. So,
Yeah.
I mean, those things, I think one of the pilots said that it was going like 1,000 miles an hour, something like that. And they couldn't catch it. But most of the ones I see are white. So I don't know. I don't know what this was. I guess, I think it was on a scouting mission because why would it be following the creek, But
You know what I
obviously it
think?
didn't have to. Was it trying to hide? But then why would it show it? I mean, it could have gone under the bridge, and yes, and then we were still seeing it. I mean, because I saw it before it came up, we still would have seen it, but it could have just kept going and we go, oh, okay. But for it to come up and then stop right there in front of us, it's like, what do we do? Yeah. Obviously, it knew we were there. Is my feeling. It knew we were there.
Well, it feels a lot like we're three cats discussing where the red dot from the laser pointer goes.
Exactly.
Like there's something that we just do not get is happening to us.
Right, right. But like, I've not seen one. I've never seen anything like that ever again. So, and I think, and I'm glad in the way that I'm glad is that nightmare. Like I said, still stuck in my head. It's still there.
Yeah, no, that leaves a mark. That's a permanent part of you now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Whatever that is. Wow.
Thanks for joining us today to hear about Florida orbs. Join us next time as we discuss Florida's high strangeness.